President Trump and Democrat Joe Biden short of the 270 Electoral College votes. Democrats, expecting a comfortable victory in the presidential election, found themselves in a nail-biter instead as the race remained in limbo till now. By early this morning, Joe Biden led with 236 electoral votes to 213, and that's where the number stands even right now, both well short of the 270 necessary to win the presidency. The U.S. election remains up in the air, with the futures of Donald Trump and Joe Biden hinging on key battleground states that were too close to call and which may take until midday today to resolve, or even more time. With no blue wave for Democrats last night, Trump and Biden are bracing for a more drawn-out process as ballots continue to be counted. And this morning, Biden did win Arizona, flipping the first state to the Democrats compared to 2016 when Trump beat Hillary Clinton. Among other states, Trump has won Florida, Texas, Ohio, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Pennsylvania Republicans wasted no time last night in firing the first shot of what is likely to be at least a week-long political knife fight in that state, potentially with the presidency at stake. As election returns rolled in from around the country, the top two Republicans in the Pennsylvania Senate sent out a 1,500-word press release criticizing the state's top election official and accusing her of mismanaging the election. President Trump and Democratic challenger Joe Biden each facing narrow paths to potential victory in a close-fought U.S. presidential election that will be determined by a razor-thin margin. 6 states remain to be called: Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, with Biden needing to carry at least 3 to win, while Trump would need at least 4 to win. The outcome is almost certain to come down to millions of absentee ballots that were the first cast in this election and often are to the last to be counted. Democrat Joe Biden addressed his supporters early this morning it was not an acceptance speech or a concession speech. It was a plea for their patience while the votes are counted. President Trump prematurely declared that he had won re-election this morning, while millions of votes had yet to be counted in the key states that could decide the contest in former Vice President Joe Biden's favor. In an extraordinary late-night address, President Trump baselessly said he had won re-election even though the race was too close to call. The president also questioned the election process, indicated that he wanted all vote counting ended, and suggested he would challenge in court any attempts to continue reviewing ballots. He said he'll take the presidential election to the Supreme Court, but it's unclear what he means in a country in which vote tabulations routinely continue beyond Election Day and states largely set the rules for when the count has to end. The presidential elections here in the country are on the verge of turning into a chaotic farce worthy of a banana republic after President Trump claimed he had won before a full counting of votes and said he would approach the country's Supreme Court to stop a fraud on the American people. The question of which party will take control of the Senate was left unresolved also due to a lack of final results in the number of key races. The chances of Democrats flipping enough seats to take control of the Senate appear to be dwindling early this morning. Democrats are forecast to keep control of the U.S. House after the elections, but with at least 6 incumbents losing their seats and others in jeopardy, Republicans have likely chipped away at their majority. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi called newly confirmed Justice Amy Coney Barrett an illegitimate Supreme Court justice. The U.S. Supreme Court, with its newly expanded conservative majority, is set today to hear a dispute over the city of Philadelphia's refusal to place children for foster care with a Catholic Church-affiliated agency that prohibits same-sex couples from applying to be foster parents. The number of coronavirus patients in the United States hospitals breached 50,000, the highest level in nearly 3 months, as a surge in infections threatens to push the nation's healthcare system to the edge of capacity. Texas reported the highest number of currently hospitalized patients with 5,936, followed by Illinois and California. Hurricane Eta continues to spin across northern Nicaragua after lashing the country's Caribbean coast for much of yesterday, isolating already remote communities and setting off deadly landslides in 2 countries that killed at least 3 people. Libya's rivals wrapped up their military talks with a call to the UN Security Council to adopt a binding resolution to implement a ceasefire deal that was inked last month. And Syrian government shelled the last rebel enclave in the country's northwest, killing at least 7 people, including 3 children. Ethiopia's prime minister ordered the military to confront one of the country's regional governments after he said it carried out a deadly attack on a military base overnight, citing months of provocation and incitement and declaring that the last red line has been crossed. Azerbaijan has recaptured enough land in its war with Armenia to rehouse up to 500,000 displaced Azeris. And the death toll in last week's Aegean Sea earthquake rose to 116 today as rescuers in the Turkish city of Izmir finished searching buildings that collapsed in the quake. Turkish rescuers have saved another young girl from a collapsed apartment building in Izmir 4 days after the deadly earthquake hit the region. 2 young Austrians of Turkish origin have been hailed for their courage following Monday's gun attack in the capital of Vienna after footage of them intervening to aid wounded people, including a policeman, spread across social media. Austrian police have arrested 14 people in those raids linked to Monday's deadly attack in Vienna and have found no evidence that a second shooter was involved. The Tunisian who knifed 3 people to death in a church in Nice in southern France last week has tested positive for COVID-19, which could further delay him being questioned. And British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said this morning his government would roll out new types of COVID-19 testing on a scale never seen before to stem the growing pandemic when a new lockdown in England expires on the 2nd of December. Poland will announce more restrictions today to halt the spread of the coronavirus, according to the Prime Minister's chief of staff in Warsaw. And Ukraine registered a record 9,524 new COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours, a day after its minister described the situation in the country as verging on catastrophic. You're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. An Australian all-rounder Shane Watson retired from all forms of cricket, drawing the curtain on an injury-plagued career which he managed to extend by reinventing himself as a journeyman 2020 specialist. After 46 days and 56 matches, we finally know what the final complexion of the IPL 2020 playoffs looks like. Mumbai Indians, of course, have finished on top of the points table with 18 points despite losing their last league match by 10 wickets to Sunrisers Hyderabad. Delhi Capitals finished second when they beat Royal Challengers Bangalore in their last league match of the season and reached 16 points. It's been that kind of an IPL season when even after an adrenaline-filled 56 matches in the league stage, it boiled down to the last match to decide which team would seal the 4th and final berth for the highly anticipated playoffs. Playoffs begin on Thursday in the UAE with last year's champions Mumbai Indians as the favourites and Virat Kohli's Royal Challengers Bangalore among the teams looking to cause an upset. Virat Kohli and opener Rohit Sharma continue to dominate the ICC ODI rankings for batsmen by occupying the top 2 positions, while pacer Jasprit Bumrah remains static at the 2nd spot in the bowlers list. Indian police today arrested a firebrand television news anchor and charged him with abetment to suicide in connection with the 2018 deaths of an interior designer and the designer's mother. The Raigad police early this morning arrested Republic TV editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami and 2 others on charges of abetment to suicide of a 53-year-old interior designer and his mother. He was in this joint operation taken then to the Alibag Civil Hospital. Thereafter, his remand report will be submitted in the court today later. India's COVID-19 caseload went past 83 lakhs while the number of recoveries surged to 76.56 lakhs, pushing the national recovery rate to over 92%. With over 46,000 fresh infections, the total number of coronavirus cases there and the death toll has risen. 514 more fatalities were reported. And according to the Health Ministry's data updated today, India's active caseload of coronavirus disease stood at 6.55% of the total positive cases in the country. This came as a big win in the country's fight with coronavirus as the multiple states continue to report a high daily caseload. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal said the national capital is reporting a 3rd wave of the coronavirus disease outbreak and said the Delhi government would move the Supreme Court later today to vacate the stay imposed by the Delhi High Court on the city administration's order of reserving 80% of the ICU beds for COVID-19 patients in 33 private hospitals in Delhi. Air quality in Delhi improved and stopped at the poor category this morning, and the weatherman predicted light snowfall in higher reaches of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh over the next 2 days. A relic showing Gautam Buddha meditating under the Tree of Awakening was among the 45 antiquities that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has returned to the people of Pakistan this week. And despite a considerable rise in the number of COVID-19 cases over the past few days, the National Coordination Committee in Islamabad has ruled out the option of imposing a complete lockdown in the country and endorsed all the measures announced by the National Command and Operations Centre, which included strict implementation of the standard procedures at public places and reduction in timings for markets and commercial activities. Terming the narrative of the opposition parties and their alliance, Pakistan Democratic Movement Anti-State, Federal Information Minister Shibli Faraz has said that finally PMLN stalwart Rana Sanaullah had openly demanded withdrawal of corruption cases against the Sharif family. The narrative adopted by the leadership against the state institutions is aimed at getting corruption cases against them closed. Sarina Isa, the wife of Justice Qazi Faiz Isa, has written a letter to President Arif Alvi in which she questioned how a judge can be considered a security threat even after putting aside his personal safety concerns and showing resolve against terrorism. In this three-page letter written to the President of Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen,